Vishnupada Paramsava Paradakacharya Shodhashada Srimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki. This confounder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Vishnupada Paramsava Paradakacharya Shodhashada Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki. Confounder Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Nitai Gaur Pramanande Hare Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 10, entitled The Battle Between the Demigods and Vritasura, text number 10. Aho denyamaho kashtam
Adevavako Kashtam.
Parakya Kshana Bangurai
Parakshatman Pangurai.
Yan Nopa Kuryad Asvarter Martyasva Gyati Vigrahai
Matyasvajyati Vigrahai.
Hodenyamaho Kashtam
Ahodanyam ahokashtam.
Parakya Kshana Bangurai
Parakyakshanavangurai.
Yan Nopa Kuryad Asvarter
Yanapakuryat asvakai.
Martyasva Gyati Vigrahai
Matyasvajyati Vigrahai.
Ahodenyamaho Kashtam
Ahodanyam ahokashtam.
Parakyakshana Bangurai
Parakyakshanavangurai.
Yan Nopa Kuryad Asvarter
Yanapakuryat asvakai.
Martyasva Gyati Vigrahai
Matyasvajyati Vigrahai. Ahodanyam ahokashtam.
Ahodanyamaho Kashtam
Parakyakshanavangurai.
Parakyakshana Bangurai
Yanapakuryat asvakai.
Yanopa Kuryad Asvarter
Matyasvajyati Vigrahai.
Martyasva Gyati Vigrahai
Ahodanyam ahokashtam
Ahodanyamaho Kashtam
Parakshana Pangurai Yanopakuryat Asvadhe
Yopa Kuryad Asvarter
Madhyasvagyati Vigrahe
Martyasva Gyati Vigrahai Aho,
Aho,
alas,
alas,
Dainyam,
Danyam,
a miserable condition.
emissions and conditions.
Aho,
Aho,
alas. Ashtam,
Ashtam,
simply tribulation.
simple tribulation.
Parakyai,
Parakya,
which after death
after that,
are eatable by
and
dogs and jackals.
dogs and jackals.
Shana Bangurai,
Kshanabhangurai,
perishable at any moment.
perishable at any moment.
Yat,
Yeah,
because.
because,
Na,
not,
not.
not,
Upa Kuryat,
Upakuryat,
would help.
would help
Asva Artai,
Asva Arpai,
not meant for self-interest.
not meant for self-interest.
Martya,
Martya,
a living entity destined to die.
living entity destined to die.
Sva,
Sva,
with his wealth.
with his wealth.
Yati,
Yati,
relatives and friends.
relatives and friends.
Vigrahai,
Vigrahai,
and his body.
and his body.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Jai.
This body, which is eatable by jackals and dogs after death, does not actually do any good for me, the spirit soul. It is usable only for a short time and may perish at any moment. The body and its possessions, its riches and relatives, must all be engaged for the benefit of others, or else they will be as sources of tribulation and misery. Report. Similar advice is also given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Etava janma sapalyam dehinam iha dehi shru parner arter diavacha shreya acharnam sada. It is the duty of every living being to perform welfare activities for the benefit of others with his life, wealth, intelligence, and words. This is the mission of life. One's own body and the bodies of his friends and relatives, as well as one's own riches and everything else one has, should be engaged for the benefit of others. This is the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bharata Bhumite Haila Manusha Janmayara Janma Sara Taka Kari Kara Para Upakara. One who has taken birth as a human being in the land of India, Bharatvarsha, should make his life successful and work for the benefit of all other people. The word upakuryat means para upakara, helping others. Of course, in human society, there are many institutions to help others, but because philanthropists do not know how to help others, their propensity for philanthropy is ineffectual. They do not know the ultimate goal of life, Shreya Acharanam, which is to please the Supreme Lord. If all philanthropic and humanitarian activities were directed towards achieving the ultimate goal of life, to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they would all be perfect. Humanitarian work without Krishna is nothing. Krishna must be brought to the center of all of our activities. Otherwise, no activity will have value. Om Gyanatramandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chukshrumitamina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are continuing with Didichi's response to the demigods after they uh, begged him to give up his body so that they could make a weapon out of his bones to defeat the demon Vritasura, who was unable to be defeated in other ways. And Didichi is giving transcendental knowledge about what actually the purpose of this body is. Generally, the conditioned living entities are very attached to their body. And what is good for this body is good for me. What is injurious to this body is injurious to me. But Didichi, being a very great soul, is unattached. He has no issue with giving up his body in order to please the demigods. Because, as he is explaining, the body is actually meant for the benefit of others. This is actually the standard of proper human society, of actually knowing that as part of what explains in the purport, one's body, the bodies of one's friends and relatives, one's own riches should actually be engaged for the benefit of others. There's some idea of this today, but generally speaking, the mentality today is to engage the body for the benefit or supposed benefit of ourselves. Now, I can do whatever I wish as long as it isn't hurting anybody else. I can live any way that I want. And if you try to stop me, then you're just a regressive, uh, you know, religious fundamentalist who hates people. Uh, you see this as the justification for policies like decriminalizing all drugs, uh, having mm, uh, letting people do all sorts of things with one's body. Because if I say that it is for my benefit, then who are you to disagree? And, I don't know anything and you don't know anything, so it's all just your opinion. And all truth is relative anyway. So uh, this is the way that people think. Many people think these days. When actually, the body is just a vehicle for the soul, which, in the ultimate position, is the servant of Krishna. And so we should engage our bodies in the service of the soul, which is to say, in the service of Krishna. But because we are conditioned, we think that everything should be engaged in the service of ourself. That is what it means to be conditioned. We think that we are in the position that Krishna actually is. So that instead of engaging everything uh, in the service of Krishna, we try to engage everything in our own service. And we do this in various ways, according to the modes of material nature that we are uh, conditioned by. One could try to satisfy the body by, very healthful living and, natural mm, ways of life, uh, or by, pushing it, very hard for achievement. Or one could even try to satisfy the body by torturing the body. Which sounds strange, but uh, there are actually people who do that. I remember one time we were doing books at a tattoo festival inside the Philadelphia Convention Center. There was this thing that people did with hooks. I won't go into detail. If anybody is interested, they can look it up later. But it was very torturous to the body, like what people were doing with these things. But they must have gotten some pleasure out of it because they were paying good money to have people do this to them. So, in the mode of ignorance, one can even gain pleasure of the body by torture of the body. But whether one is living in that way or uh, even if uh, one is satisfying the body by trying to live in accordance with material nature, There might be a relative difference, but on the absolute scale, it is all just trying to satisfy one's own self. And then, if one becomes a little bit more broad minded, one might start to think of the welfare of others, but only on the bodily platform. One sees this in many, many ways. One that comes to mind is politics, politics, economics, societal things. People are proponents of capitalism because they say, oh, it brings so much wealth and uh, it brings so much benefit for people. It's for the good of society. And people were proponents, and sometimes some people still are proponents of communism because they felt that it brought benefit to society. Of course, one should actually look at the results of these things, but still, people believe in these systems because they think, oh, be let let me be broad-minded and think of the benefits of everyone, and uh, try to make this social system for the benefits of everybody else. Even on a more specific level, there are so many philanthropic institutions, so many institutions to help others. But as Prabhupada points out, they do not know how to help others. So one has to have knowledge in order to be of actual help. I remember going on books pretty regularly in Philadelphia, and there's always people like people canvassing out on street corners for their own causes. There's people we see often are Planned Parenthood, the Save the Children Foundation. Uh, Ironic that they'd be on the same block as Planned Parenthood, but and then one that for a little bit we sometimes ran into trouble with was the ASPCA. It's the American Society for the Protection of Animals. And because the thing is that everybody wants the good street corners, right? And we would get out there early, uh, and so we'd always get to the good street corners before the ASPCA did. Uh, and the thing is, I learned later that apparently they have what they called the turf grid. So all of like the ASPCA, Planned Parenthood, Save the Children, all of them, like the like leaders, like the local leaders, would set up like who would get what corner, what day. But because we were a religious institution, we didn't have to follow those rules. So we had to just take whatever corner we wanted. And the SPCA would always come and give us a hard time, at least with me. I don't know if the other Mantra Lounge people have the same issue. But sometimes they come and actually yell at us about uh, taking their corner because they'd have to go set up across the street or something. Uh, I actually, just as a side note, it actually got to the point where I called the national ASPCA and said like, "Hey, can you guys get your people under control?" Uh, but just by uh, just looking at the situation, they're supposed to be the Society for the Protection of Animals, putting to the side for a moment that during their national banquets they serve meat.
Mhm.
Yeah, uh, because they're one of their things is one, they mostly focused on pet animals, not livestock animals. Uh, and they, at least at that time, were into the whole myth of humane slaughter. Uh, but actually, if they took um, what they actually purported to believe in, they would actually be trying to help us, right? Because automatically, when one takes up Krishna consciousness, one becomes vegetarian. It's far more beneficial for the animals than factory farm reforms or whatever they were pushing for. And that was just a specific example because we had a bit of a turf war with them. Uh, but even the other um, organizations, I mentioned Planned Parenthood, which of course one knows the main activity that they do, which they are purporting to help people. Actually, even in this life, it leads to distress. What to think about karma, and what uh, these activities are uh, doing for the next lives of the uh, people who are uh, partaking in them. And even, many of the uh, people who are held up as very saintly from a worldly perspective, if you look at their activities because of lack of knowledge, they, in many ways, were harming the uh, people that they were purporting to help. I know one example that comes to mind is Mother Teresa, Saint Mother Teresa. She is canonized, but she induced many of the people in her places to eat meat. So she was doing so much good in one sense of the word, in one sense, but in another sense, uh, there was uh, harm being done. Because, of course, if one eats meat, one has to suffer that in later lives. Of course, many of the Catholic saints also did uh, a lot worse things than inducing people to eat meat. Uh, but uh, the point is that to actually benefit people, it requires knowledge, knowledge of specifically how best to act. Because the living entity is by nature active. Even if one tries to just sit in one place and do nothing, the first of all, one will very quickly get bored, uh, generally speaking, and try to go engage in some activity. And even if one, by some means or another, does sit in one place for an extended period of time, uh, one's mind will be engaged in thinking of all sorts of activities. So, since we have to be active, it is recommended that we bring Krishna to the center of all of our activities. We have to perform so many activities just for the maintenance of the body. Uh, we have to eat eat, sleep, mate, and defend uh, are the basic functions of the body. But if we are doing them, we can put Krishna in the center. You can eat prasadam. We can try to keep the body uh, healthy because for the service of Krishna. Even things like just keeping the body clean. We could keep it clean for our own satisfaction, or be thinking, "Oh, I have to serve the deities. One must be suchi to do so." And whatever activities we are engaged in, we can keep Krishna in the center. And we have to engage our senses. So whether they are the working senses or the karmendriya, or the karmendriyas or the gyanendriyas, the knowledge acquiring senses, uh, we can try to engage them with Krishna. In my Guru Maharaj's book, Bhakti Bhav, he recommends whenever you want to engage your senses, look for Krishna sense objects. And so he wants to smell pleasing things. You can smell the incense or the flowers uh, offered in the temple. One can hear kirtan or lectures. One can, of course, taste Krishna prasadam. Just nobody has an issue with engaging the taste in Krishna consciousness. And then, of course, one wants to look at pleasing things, and what form is more attractive than the forms of Radha and Krishna. And uh, of course, the uh, hearing propensity is ultimately engaged in the hearing of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, which is the Yuga Dharma for this age, and uh, should be the center of all of our activities, of how we plan out our day. Should be how can we most peacefully and intensely hear the Hare Krishna mantra. I know sometimes, just speaking for myself, that on occasions, sometimes more often than just on occasion, chanting can just be, okay, it's something that I have to do, right? I've made a vow at the time of initiation to chant 16 rounds a day. But, the mind is engaged in so many other things, even while chanting sometimes. But so sometimes, at least for me, I don't know if others have had the same experience of, you don't always mm, recognize what actually chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra means. One is actually associating with Krishna. And uh, actually, just this process, which compared to the processes given in other ages is very easy, will actually purify us uh, of all material contamination and allow us to serve Krishna without any other pretension or conditioning. So that's all that comes to mind. We have a bit of time left before the uh, deities open. There's always discussions to be had. Are there any comments, questions, additions, subtractions? First from our in-person audience or online?
Thank you so much for beautiful elaboration on this subject. I have a question.
Mhm.
You elaborated and gave examples of how helping on godly platform is always some negative effect because ultimately they don't know what they are doing, they don't have knowledge, spiritual knowledge. Yet at the same time, helping on a godly platform, it seems it's much more appealing and it's much more recognized and appreciated
Mhm.
when people, when feed or feed the poor or provide them clothing and things like that. Whereas spiritual help seems very, it's not something you can touch
Mm.
and feed your stomach with and things like that. And a lot of, I'm just thinking particular right now about Mormons, that they are very well known of providing the bodily help.
Mm.
But at the same time, they are seems that they are utilizing this to bring people to their path.
Mhm.
So my question is, um, I don't know, how can we apply it in as a Krishna conscious movement, or maybe even I don't know. I don't know exactly what my question is.
Yeah, I think I see where you're going.
Okay.
Yeah, so the question for those listening is that, while recognizing that, uh, help on the bodily platform is, in the world of duality and always comes with some distress. Uh, it seems that, it's more recognized in general. And in some communities like the Mormons, uh, use it to kind of attract people. And then they preach to them about their uh, own views on things. So basically, if we should utilize that and how can we? So yeah, I don't think that Prabhupada or the Acharyas or whoever is necessarily against helping people on the bodily platform. I think it's just that the main issue is thinking that uh, okay, well, I've helped somebody fill their belly. Now that's all that I have to do, right? Prabhupada in a discussion about farm communities, run ashram, things like that. The point was raised before that it's very difficult for somebody whose mind is not peaceful to actually apply a lot of the spiritual practices. So yeah, like there isn't necessarily anything wrong with feeding the poor or things like that. Just try to feed them with Krishna prasadam, and while they're there, uh, try to tell them about Krishna. Right. So it's not so we might be uh, giving out uh, so much food to the poor, but we also, well, one, are careful about what we give out, right? So I remember during 2020, there was, like these aid packages, I guess, sent out by the government to different nonprofits in order for them to distribute to their communities, to help people who couldn't afford groceries, things like that, because all the supply chains were messed up due to COVID. But, we open it. The first thing on the top was a letter by Donald Trump, uh, saying like, I'm giving this to everybody to help the world. Uh, but and there are so many things. Like some things were fruits and vegetables, and some things were meat and eggs and things like that. So we got rid of we just threw away the meat and the eggs and things, and then gave out the on, fruits and vegetables. Uh, so it's not on the plea of helping people that we just give them whatever. So we have to apply higher knowledge. And then ultimately, the way to make a peaceful society or to help people materially on a large or systematic scale is Varnashram Dharma, which is, of course, Krishna's social system. It is still material in a certain sense, in the sense that it's, dealing with all of our designations and, the pure devotees don't need Varnashram Dharma. But for the rest of us, it is material help. But it's in a way that is centered around Krishna. I should say Daiva Varnashram Dharma. Uh, so yeah, it's not necessarily like forbidden to help people materially, but we should recognize that that isn't the ultimate help, and try as much as possible to introduce them to Krishna through that material help, whether ideally by directly introducing them to Krishna, or even just engaging them in a Gyata Sukriti, right? Somebody comes on, because they just want to help feed the poor, but, they're doing prasadam distribution, right? So, maybe in this life, or if not this life, maybe in their next life, they'll have the chance to perform devotional service again, and their path back to Krishna has started. Hopefully that answered something. I felt like I was rambling there at the end.
Thank you so much. That was really good.
All right. Thank you. Do you have any comments or questions, Prabhu?
No, thank you. I appreciate very much your words of wisdom that you share. Very beautiful. Yeah. And I have nothing to add.
Right. Thank you, Prabhu. Are there any comments, questions, etc. from our online Vaishnavas?
I could make a comment.
Of course, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you for a nice class. Provokes a lot of thought. This issue of para upakar is important for devotees. Srila Prabhupada spoke extensively on this topic. As you pointed out, there's lots of people who are enthused to try to do good for others, but they don't always understand what really constitutes actual welfare. So para upakar is about the ultimate good. And Srila Prabhupada was, of course, concerned with para upakar and instructed us in such a way that we would understand how best to benefit others. And devotees would have lots of questions about this, what should we do, what should we not do? And sometimes, especially early in the movement, newer devotees would conflate concepts of devotional service with mundane welfare. And so Srila Prabhupada would take pains to explain the delineation, the difference between ordinary welfare work and the ultimate welfare work, para upakar. His advice to us on many occasions was that while on the one hand we don't object to mundane welfare activity, and Srila Prabhupada, in his own personal example, he was sometimes seen to engage in such activity. Sometimes devotees were surprised by this because Srila Prabhupada tended to focus almost exclusively on Par Upakar. But there was, for example, an instance in Vrindavan. Prabhupada was walking with the devotees, and they encountered some beggars. There were, I think there was a woman and some young children who were begging, and so Srila Prabhupada gave each of them, I think, 25 pice coin, and he advised the devotees that you can do this. There is no harm to do that, because in many instances devotees would think that, well, if there is some Lakshmi, it should be spent exclusively for devotional service, and we don't want to put Krishna's Lakshmi to waste with some mundane welfare work. But Srila Prabhupada was not completely opposed to such things. He felt that it would be inhumane and insensitive and a poor example that would hurt the image of devotees if we did not offer something to such beggars. Didn't have to be a substantial amount, but just something, a little token. But generally, he did focus on Par Upakar. And his general advice to us was that that we should focus on the ultimate welfare, that we should not waste our time, because time is a precious commodity. We have only so much time. We should not divert our attention to matters of material welfare, bodily welfare, because there are others who are very interested to do that. There are people that want to feed the hungry. There are people who want to provide for the poor. There are people who want to open hospitals and provide medical services to the less fortunate. But such individuals were not uncommon, but it is very rare to find someone who, what to speak of having the desire to find a person who has the knowledge to be able to offer someone the ultimate welfare. That is the exclusive domain of the devotees. And so Srila Prabhupada's advice was that we should focus, especially on doing Para Upakar, the ultimate welfare, and leave these other types of welfare to others, because we alone have the capacity to do the ultimate welfare for others. And so we should not divert our attention and our time, because the need is so great. We can never completely fill the need. None of our time should be diverted for any other purpose. Let others take care of issues of ordinary and mundane welfare. There are many others who are prepared to do that, but we have something unique to offer. We can help individuals to reestablish their lost relationship with Krishna and do the ultimate welfare for them. And so we should focus our resources, our time, and our attention exclusively on that, because no one else is going to do it. There are so very few of us. Anyway, that was his general advice to us. Thank you again, Hari Krishna.
Well, thank you for your comments, Prabhu. Always enlightening. We have about 6 minutes.
Hare Krishna, good morning.
Haribol.
Haribol, thank you for your class. It was very informative and it was really uplifting. I have a sort of a hypothetical question for you. So in that situation where you are there in book distribution. You are there to bring Krishna consciousness and broadcast it. And ASPCA, whoever, somebody comes up and they're yelling and they're just, they're incensed. Like, quick elevator pitch, how do you neutralize that situation and perhaps give them just a nugget of Krishna consciousness to walk away with? How did you, or can you do that in a situation like that?
Somebody might be able to do that. I don't think I necessarily gave them so much Krishna consciousness in that situation. But basically what I said is like, hey, it's a public sidewalk. We're a religious organization. We don't have to follow the same rules as you as far as like reserving spots or anything. So we're here. You can try to do whatever you're doing around us if you want. Otherwise, you can just go across the street. And they could either like it or not. Whether or not they like it, we're staying. So uh, they could try to stand right next to us and do their thing. I think most figured out pretty quickly that it doesn't work. Uh, just in general, because two canvassers of any kind standing right next to each other, uh, it's not very effective. And then also, not necessarily myself, but some of the other people in the ashram were very empowered book distributors, and you know, the ASPCA or anybody else would not be able to keep up with the energy that they were distributing books. So basically, we just like what we usually did, or what I usually did, was say like, "Hey, we're here. We're staying here. You can try to stick. You can stick around if you want to try that. You can, give a donation and take a book if you want, or you could just go somewhere else." So yeah, I don't, give them the option to get a book if they wanted to, but other than that, uh, they could at least be in the vicinity of book distribution if they wanted to. But yeah, I don't know if there's a way to give them more Krishna consciousness, especially if they seem to, at a certain level, already be um, mm, inimical almost to it by thinking, "Oh, we're doing so much good for you guys." Because like, a lot of times the ASPCA people, especially, were very dismissive towards our book distribution efforts. There's one time even somebody actually said to me, uh, like, "Oh, we're actually trying to help, the world. You guys are just trying to sell books." Uh, so, a lot of which wasn't always the case with all the other canvassers. I've distributed books to Planned Parenthood volunteers before. They're very appreciative. Um, Even though it seems, externally that, the activities are in contrast, with Planned Parenthood people, but in somewhat more aligned, protecting animals and things like that with the SPCA. But just personally, the people were inimical for some reason or another. So I'm not sure how much opportunity uh, there was for actually giving them Krishna consciousness. Maybe somebody who's an Uttamadhikari saw everybody in one uh, in one way was would be able to, but I was not at such an advanced level. See, there's a text comment. Oh, Shambhavati says that just my material presence was also a deterrent. So I'm a bigger guy. Uh, okay. The doors should be opening anytime, so I guess we will end here. Thank you, everybody, for your comments and your attention. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Shri Shri Radha Damodar Ki.